Okay, good morning. So we're carrying on our halachas of Tzeda. Interestingly, in today's learning in Sif Ches, we'll come across something which is fascinating about taking injections on Shabbos. If you need to, so if you have to have some sort of injection and they extract a little bit of blood, what is the story with that on Shabbos? So let's take a look at the Mechaba and the Mishnah first. Okay, says the Mechaba, Shin Tez Zayin Sif Ches. Shmeine shrotzim ha'amurim b'Torah hatzodon chayav. There are 8 shrotzim, reptiles, which are listed in the Torah, and if you trap those on Shabbos, chayav v'achayvel bohem, and if you injure them, afal pi shelo yotze mem dam, even though you haven't actually caused blood to emerge from the animal, ele nitzra tachas ha'or, but it just gathers together under the skin, chayav, because making a chabura is tantamount to causing blood to come out. Ushar shrotzim and the other types of creepy crawlers and insects and lizards and reptiles, ein chayav ha'chayv bohem elim kein yotz mem dam. You're only going to be chayav if dam emerges. V'hatzodon tzorech chayav, and if you trap them for any benefit, then you're chayav. Shelo tzorech oistam potzav osa or Rambam chayav. Okay, so let's explain it all. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Chof Ches. So Shmeine Shrotzim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Zihine, Mitchila Bea Mechab Din Seida B'chayvoiv. The structure of this simon has been, so far we've explained Seida in terms of Chaya and Oif, to Ba'is and Haminim Mistamayon Seida Netzorech, because presumably, for most Chayas and Oifos, you trap them Letzorech. Va'achshav Bea Mechab Din Seida Shrotzim. And now we're moving on to the Seida of Shrotzim. Because when it comes to shrotzim, there's a distinction. There are some shrotzim which have skins, and it's dafka the 8 shrotzim which are listed in the Torah which have skin. What are they? Yesh Seder. For those shrotzim, there is the is of Seder. The mistama tzodin gam letzorech zeh, because mistama you trapped it for the benefit of the skin, to take the skin. Unless it was very clear that it wasn't for a benefit, in which case you'd be potter. Because why do you need it? What are you doing it for? But the non-8 shrotzim, they don't have oiras, they don't have skin. And therefore stam, it will be nitzad l'shelo l'tzorech. The default is shelo l'tzorech, unless it was otherwise. Now, 2 interesting things. First of all, if you look at 49, what exactly is the geder of Dova Nitzot, which we spoke about a bit yesterday, but he says in 49, the geder Dova Shemina Nitzot, it's not fixed for all time. If you regilas hanoshim ba'is zman, hakol fi hazman v'hamokum, right? It depends on the time, the situation, and what is caught, in one generation might not be in another generation. It depends on the situation. That's number 1. If you look at then back up at 47 in the second paragraph, he says, Omnom, bismanenu nowadays, kosav b'teres Shabbos, shetzedas achbarim ein asur l'midrabanon. Maybe back in the day you would use the skin of a rat or something like that, but nowadays we don't, and therefore it reduces mouse trapping to a drabonim. If they shein dam nitzaydim nitzorech hashimush bohem v'chein kosav v'kevis b'beis levi. We don't really use them nowadays. Okay. Well, legabe achba shenichbed b'Shabbos. Now, what if you've got like a little, you do have a problem of infestation of rats or something, and you've got, one has been caught, and it's in a little box and it's trapped or something. Can you feed it? So he says, if you see this rat, it looks a bit peckish, mitzvah the mitzvah to give it some food on Shabbos, mishum hakosov v'rachmov al kol masov, like we say in Ashrei. So even a rat that you've caught that has been driving you mad, rachmov al kol masov, and therefore to give it food is allowed on Shabbos. Interesting. Okay. Weiter. V'hachovel. So with these... So killing animals
for
the foxes. Yeah, there are foxes in town. Putting down rat poison and fox poison on Shabbos.
To keep it away.
Yeah.
Is that terrific? Because it's slowly. If it's not
Yeah. I suppose you're not. What are you doing already? You're not. It's grommer at best, and then I'm not 100% sure.
Huh? You're not
What
doing
are you
it.
doing?
You're not doing it necessarily to kill. You're doing it to.
Yeah.
Doing it to keep away. To keep it away.
Yeah.
No, she's putting it during the week, which
If you put it during the week, there's no shayla. Yeah, you're talking about doing it on Shabbos itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Don't know. Okay, v'achayvel. So what have we said? Shmona shrotzim, which hamurim b'Torah. So you then, if you trap them, you're chayev, and if you injure them, then even if dam doesn't come out, you're still going to be chayev. Says the Mishnah Berurah Chavtes, ha'chayvel tam lechiv chavolahu mipnei netilas neshama sheba'is mokum, because ki adam hu hanefesh v'alkein afilu yotz adam kolshu or nizra adam kolshu chayev, because you've caused the blood to sort of swell under the skin, and that is a form of netilas neshama, of killing that insect, because in that place there's been some bleed, there's been some dam, and therefore hadam hu hanefesh, and therefore that's considered netilas neshama, at least in that place. Bohem. So if we said if you're chayvel bohem, even if dam doesn't come out, then you're going to be chayev. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkos and Lamed, nokat chavola b'shrotzim. The reason why it talks about chavola with shrotzim mishum to behu yesh shrotzim she'ein lohem er. There are some shrotzim where they do not have skin. Ve'ein lechayev ad sheyetze adam. And then, if they haven't got skin, you're only going to be chayev when actual blood appears. Kamosha mesayim ha'mechaber, like the mechaber finishes off. Avul kol shekein the yesh chiyuv ha'chavola bebehem chayev oif. But when it comes to behem chayev oif, then kolshken you're going to be chayiv for injuring it. Shekulam yesh lemar, because behemoth chayanov, they all have skin, and if you hit the animal in some, whatever you do, some sort of chavala, and therefore it causes a bruise, you're going to be chayiv. For chayiv afilu benitzra, even if it just gathers together. For chol zeh mayri b'shetzorech ledam chavala lekalboy or le'eze inyan. Then this is all if you need the dam for whatever reason. Or lebasa shenitzra b'adam lahachil lekalboy, to feed your animal in dam with blood. Because without that, then it's just mekalkel. You've caused an injury and it's mekalkel, it's destructive, and therefore you'll be potter. You're going to be chayiv if the dam collects. The ain't bichlal kilkul el tikun. On the contrary, it is a tikun. If you're trying to trap an animal, if you hit it and then it weakens it, it's easier to capture. And if you do it, if you do it as sort of by taking revenge, you want to hit somebody, or someone's animal for this sort of intention, for yotz adam and nitzra, and blood comes out, or it just causes a bruise, then you're going to be chayiv because it's not mechalkel anymore. You've achieved your purpose. You wanted to give a patch to this person or to this animal. And since you've calmed down now, it's a tikkun on your emotional well-being, perhaps. And the same is true if you tear something in your anger. Normally it's called mekalkel, but if you do so to abate your anger, then it's actually called a tikkun. But either way, there is an issa. You may exempt yourself from a carbon chatas, but nevertheless it's going to be asa. You got to be therefore be very careful not to hit any living creature on Shabbos. So apart from problems of tzar b'lechaim and things like that, even if there was a benefit for you doing it, and maybe there's no tzar b'lechaim, still you got to avoid coming to the problem of a chabura on Shabbos. Because either way there is an issa involved, even if it's mekalkel. And sometimes people slip up on this. Okay, we'll stop there for a second. Let's just do two interesting footnotes. First, 52. Now, if you do hit the animal, and let's say you cause some sort of damage, or even a human being, so fascinatingly, this is an example of kamle midrab minei. So if you look at 52, if you have to pay money because you injured somebody, so then you're exempt from payments. Since you extracted blood, then kamle midrab minei. There's a lot of discussion on this. Even if you do it b'sheigeg, which means you're not going to be chayav misa for the chavala, nevertheless that still exempts you from the tashlumin. So we still apply common name Rabbi. Okay, that's something to bear in mind. Now, if you look at 55, this is also very important. So we're talking about causing a chabura and blood to sort of swell under the skin, which is a bruise. Then it's also for humans, to do it on humans and for animals. Even if it's a game, to give a kid, to squeeze his cheeks. You see some people do that, and the poor kids in agony. You've caused the kid to have red cheeks, and that's an issa, even at least rabbanon. There's some you see sometimes the kids play a game, with the slap. They have to hit their hands. You're not familiar with this, and they do it with and you've got to move your hand away. Okay, it's a fun game maybe, but on Shabbos you're going to have a problem, because if you're successful at this game, then that means you do hit the other kid, and you're going to cause a lot of bruising, or it's going to go red. And it's not a shayla of them consenting. You've caused danacha ma'isa chavala on Shabbos.
Wouldn't it be only if it's a sign?
No, because you're right. If it's a sign, it makes it worse, because there's a tikkun. It's not mekalkel or whatever. But he says even there's even mikol makom asurin. He says there may not be in a deraisa, but it's mikol makom asurin. So better to play chess. Okay, v'chein asa lochuch shchin. Now another application of these halachas, interesting, in the middle of the hilchas seder, asa lochuch shchin. If you got a boil and you're scratching the boil, and then through your scratching it, you're going to, blood is going to come out, which has been contained in the bosa, and therefore you've got to avoid doing that on Shabbos. And if you're letting blood of a human or of an animal in a situation where there's no sakana, then you're going to be chayiv to bichlal masakin, because bloodletting is a healthy exercise, and therefore you've done a tikkun. It's good to take the blood out. V'gamhu melocha tzricha legufa. You do want the blood to come out, so therefore it's considered the melocha tzricha legufa. And therefore a tooth extraction on Shabbos could be an issa deraisa, because you want the tooth out. Inevitably, blood is going to come with it. To b'chal chayv l'refuah. Kein kosam magen avram b'simen shin chav ches sif cotton gimel. V'aprim godim v'chayodem etc. V'ayim b'bei halacha, and the b'bei halacha concludes. If you look at 59. In the second, the last sentence, when the Ma'aser Kosev she'afal pi she'ein lahakol lo'yis Hashem al yedei Yisrael, mikol makom al yedei nochi tochin she'esh lahakol afilim lo'chol Yisrael al yedei ke'ev shinayim b'chol gufay. So asking a non-Jewish person to take the tooth out, b'mokum chayli or tsar, then l'cher that'll be okay. Of a Maimon Mordechai, continuing the Mishnah Berurah, of a Maimon Mordechai mashma do yitzos Hashem rak issa. Yesh by v'lochi of chatzos. Taking the tooth out would be an issa drabon and not a deraisa. It's a chavolos hadam. When you take the tooth out, you don't want the blood, you just want the tooth out and the relief of the pain. And therefore he says it'll be a drab on them. Okay, now let's take a look at footnote 58. There he talks about injections and things on Shabbos. Now that's very interesting. Let's take a look. 58. To take a blood sample of someone who is not in sakana. To take some blood of a healthy person. You want to check his dam. Yes, my brother-in-law Benji Schreiber, many years ago started a chabura with Dain Erentrei with the halachas of refuah on Shabbos, and he got a whole bunch of doctors together, and Dain Erentrei put together a little kuntras on it. And for most situations, you can use a shinui and things like that. But one problem which is very problematic is actually extracting blood. Because for a blood sample you need the blood, so it's a malacha shesrich legufa, and it's extracting dam is a problem. So here we have it. The Nissan Karada says it's an Issa Deraisa. Now, V'zrika hamiteres l'toich vered. Now, what about doing an injection in a vein? That's Hagon Rabbi Yecheskel Abramsky, right? Quoted by the Shmir Shabbos. So here of the London-based in fame. Sha'asur min ha'torah mekiven shelifnei hazrika yesh lahitzi ma'adam l'toich hamizrak hamnas l'mechad nimtzas derech havered. It's very interesting. How the way it works is, if you want to inject into a vein, to make sure you've got the vein, they want to take a little bit of the blood out. So then the question is, can you do that? So the Dayan Abramsky says it was also. However, in Shmir Shabbos, Hagon Shlomo Zalman says he's stapik. He's not sure. Here, I don't want the blood. I just want to check that I've got the vein. I don't need the blood. I just want to check that this is, I've actually, my needle is in the vein. It's not that I don't want this thing to remain open. He said it's no different to take out a thorn, and therefore he would say it's mutter. The Mishnah Berurah says mutter. And if a bit of blood comes out before you inject, then it's only makalkel. And therefore he concludes it's mutter. So you got a three-way machlokas over here. You got Dan Abramsky and others saying that it's awesome in Torah. You've got Shlomo Zalman saying, not sure, maybe Drabonon, and you've got the Minchas Yitzchak saying it's mutter. And v'chein kosav shashus arletzion, etc., etc. Shuzik l'teicha avered muteres. It's to inject in a vein is mutter sheitzos adam nechshavs k'makalkel v'malachshin tzrich l'gufa v'lachei muter l'choyle v'gain that's a gon of kareles she'ein latira ella alidei nochri. And he suggests that you do it by way of a non-Jewish person. If he takes the blood out, then that would be allowed. Okay, so injections on Shabbos could be very problematic, and different opinions as to exactly what the issue is. Okay, let's finish off. Says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Aleph, Chayev. So this is going on if you injure an animal on Shabbos and you cause a bruise, which is blood swelling under the skin, so then you're chayev. Says Rashi, says Mishnah Berurah Lamed Aleph, the nitzrar hainu shenesaf nikbetz b'makom echad, the blood collects under one area, for shuvei nechayzev v'nivl ba'bos, and therefore it doesn't now go back to the skin, it doesn't just return, but it stays there. V'alkein chayev mishum tilas neshama sheba'isem makom, like we said before, it's considered murder in that place, ki adam hu nefesh v'chanal, like we said before. However, the other shrotzim, who do not have skin, Ein a chayev, you're not going to be chayev on chavola unless dam comes out. Says the Mishnah Berurah Lamed Beis, hatam the kaimel on chabura chazeres leishma chabura, that it's if something which returns, that's not called a chabura. Valkein shash rotzim she'erin rach mamish kabasa, their skin is like flesh. It's not really a proper layer of skin. But meherin nitzra by adam. The dam will just go back into the flesh pretty quickly, and therefore it's not considered the proper chabura unless dam comes out. But the 8 shrotzim we said in the beginning of the sif, their skin is not so soft. And there you have a proper bruise, and therefore you would be chayev for chavola. So if you trap them shalol tzorech or shalol tzorech l'stam, then it's potavel also. Kugain l'sachik, for example, you trap one of the non-shmona shrotzim for your kids to play with v'chia gavna. Potam mishum dahavale meloch shein tzorech l'gufa. Hatzod dogim min hanar. If you fish on Shabbos, so you sort of trap them. Afilu nosna b'tekef b'toich sefer shamayim shelo yomus. Even if you transfer it straight away into a bucket where you haven't, therefore it's not going to die. You put it into another bucket of water. But if you leave it there, chayiv mishum seder. Nevertheless, you're going to be chayiv mishum seder because without the netilas and shom, without killing it, even if you haven't killed it, you still chayiv mishum seder. And if you leave it there to die, chayiv gam mishum netilas neshama. So there's two things: there's seder and there's netilas neshama. The lav dafka meis, and it doesn't have to actually die. And even if you sort of almost kill it, it sort of almost dries out until you've got a certain area, like a coin's worth between the fins, which is dried out, and it's still flapping around, still then you're chayav mishum netilas neshama. Teshuveni yochel lichyos, because once it's gone to that stage, it won't survive. V'amin begemara delav dafka yovish mamish, doesn't have to be mamish dry. Elek shezov rir misham v'nimshecha etz b'sham k'shemenicha olav. It's just a little bit of juice that comes out of it, whatever the simon is. But either way, that you're still chayav mishum netilas neshama because you've taken it to that stage. Therefore, practically, you've got to be careful to avoid telling a non-Jewish person to take a fish from a barrel shalmayim of water of and to put it on dry land. Even though you're worried that it might, the fish might die and it will ruin the water. We don't allow a non-Jewish person to do an issa deraisa for financial loss. Unless you tell him to take the fish and put it into another container. Because it's a tiltul, it's mukta, which is an issa drabonon for a non-Jewish person for benefit for that benefit would be allowed. But the Rambam Chaim. Now the Rambam would say that for chavola, which for one of the non-shmona shrotzim is not potav loss of yochayev. Why is that? Because he holds malacha shein tzricha leguf is chayev. Says Mishmur Lamadala, dafilu sheloi letzorich kol shenischaven lemalacha the sfir lei malacha shein tzricha leguf is chayev allowed. The famous shit of the Rambam. V'roiv hapoiskim kadei rishayna the pota mechatos mishum the boinim melechs machsheves v'asim drabonon. However, we don't pass like the Rambam, and most Mefarshim say that it's an issa drabonon, not an issa deraisa. Yeah.